Sir, you can start.
Okay, so students, if you recall, we were discussing the. Uh,
Hello, sir.
yeah, hello. Yes.
Sir, your voice is very low. I can't hear you properly.
Voice is low. Now can you hear?
Now it's okay. Now it's okay, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
come closer and tell. Okay. So, if you recall, we were discussing about the linked lists. So, the basic concepts we had discussed in the previous lecture. Uh, Today, actually, we shall be looking at the implementation of linked list in more detail. So exactly, if you are programming in C, so how do you create a general linked list and write the functions for traversal, insertion, deletion, and so on? Okay, let's see. So just to recall, we had already mentioned that a linked list is a kind of a data structure. It's a list. It implements some kind of a list. List means I'm repeating. There is a set of elements where you can define an order. Order means you can say that this is the first element, this is the second element, this is the third element, and so on. That is what we call as a list. Now it is called a linked list because the elements are logically connected, I mean, one after the other using this kind of pointers or links. That is why this is called a linked list. The successive elements are connected by pointers. Pointer, if you recall, is nothing but the address of a memory location. Suppose in memory, this element B is stored somewhere. This is B. And whatever is the address of this memory location, suppose the address is 1000. Then here we shall be storing 1000. Which means in this node A, we shall be storing the address of the memory location where the next element is stored. And this is done for all successive nodes as well. Now, I have also mentioned that in a linked list, we would be allocating only that many elements as required. Unnecessarily, we will not be defining or allocating huge memory space, just like what we do when you are using arrays. So in general, the size of a linked list can either grow or shrink during execution. Okay. Generally, it does not waste memory space. So once we have this kind of a linked list, and another important thing about linked list is that we must know the address of the first element from where we should start. This is typically called the head of the linked list. Because unless you do not know the head, you will not know which is your first element, from where to start, right? Fine. Now the important operations that we typically carry out on a linked list are
Hello, sir.
insertion.
Sir, please
Yes.
tell once again third point, previous slide, third point. Shrink. What is grow?
Third point,
Grow.
grow and
Yes,
shrink.
yes.
Okay, okay. Let me explain this with the help of the next slide. So what I'm saying is that suppose I have a linked list. Let's say I'm drawing a linked list. Let's say there are 3 elements. The linked list is like that. Now we can insert an element in the linked list. This we shall be explaining in detail later. So instead of 3, I may want to insert one more element. Like what I do, I change this pointer, I make this point here, I make this point here. So now the list will contain 4 elements. Similarly, if you want to delete an element, suppose I want to remove this element, then what I do? Straight away this pointer, I directly connect to ground. Okay. So like this, the size of the linked list can change with time. That is what the third point was saying. If you look at the third point, it can grow or shrink in size during
Okay, okay.
execution.
Thank you.
So which means if you go on inserting elements, the size of the linked list will go on increasing. Similarly, if you delete some elements, the size will decrease. Now, another important operation on a linked list is something called traversal. Traverse the nodes in a list. That means starting from the head, that means the first element, you go through the successive elements of the linked list and possibly print the values. Let's say print the values. This is what we mean by traversal. Now let us explain the process of insertion and deletion before actually going to how to write the corresponding C functions for them. Okay. Let us look into the problem of insertion first. I had just showed a diagram. So I have a diagram in the next slide. Look at this. Consider that I have a linked list like this, where there are 3 elements stored, A, B, and C. So we have already memory space allocated from these 3 nodes A, B, and C. Suppose I want to add a 4th element whose value is X. Let us say I want to insert it between A and B. Okay, in order to do this, what we have to do? Let's see, if we want to insert X between A and B, there we have to adjust 2 pointers. See, earlier, the next pointer of A was pointing to the address of B, right? Now, A will be changed. It should point to the address of X. Similarly, the next pointer of this X would be modified to point to the address of B. Now, if we can make this modification, then starting from the head, this A will be the first element. You follow the pointers. X will be the second element. B will be the third element. And C will be the fourth element. So, is this
Yes, sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, talking about insertion, there can be several different scenarios. Let us look into it. This is that linked list once again. Let us look at the first scenario, that you want to insert an element at the beginning. Which means I have a node, let's say X. I want to insert it in the beginning. So if you want to insert into the beginning, what you have to do, the steps you have to do, you just remember this. I have to modify head because initially head was pointing to A. Now I have to adjust this. Head will be pointing to X. And the next pointer of X would point to A. Which means I have to modify 2 pointers. One is this head, other is this next pointer of X. Is this clear? If you want to insert an element in the beginning of the list, in that case I have to insert X before A. So I have to make head point to this X and X point to A. Then X will be the first element, A will be the second element, B will be the third element. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us look at the second scenario. Sorry, just a second. Let me erase this out. Okay. The second scenario is insert at the middle, somewhere in the middle. This is the scenario which I had explained in the previous slide. Suppose I want to insert this X between A and B. Then I have to modify 2 next pointers. One is that this A, I have to modify this. This was pointing to B. Now this will point to X. This is first. And the next pointer of this new node X, this will be pointing to B. So if you can do this, then now A will be the first element, X will be the second element, B will be the third element, and so on.
Yes, sir.
So is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the third scenario is insert at the end. Insert at the end. Suppose I want to insert an element at the end. Let's call it Y. So in this case, again, I have to modify two next pointers. So whatever C was pointing to this null. So now this C will be pointing to this Y. This C will be pointing to Y, right? And the next pointer of Y will be pointing to null. So if we can do this, then obviously this Y will be inserted at the end. So Y will be coming after C, right? So these are the three different scenarios. So when we look at the insert function, later on I shall show you, there you will see that there are three parts where you are handling insertion in the beginning, insertion in the middle, and insertion in the end. But logically what is happening, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us talk about deletion. Deletion is very similar. Suppose we have a linked list like this where there are three elements and we want to delete some element, let's say in the middle, the node B. So if I want to delete the node B, just see what you have to do. We have to change one pointer. The next pointer of A, which was pointing to B, now we have to point it to C directly. So if we do this, what will happen? Starting from head, A will be the first element, and following the next pointer, you directly go to C. C will become now the second element, as if B has been deleted. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
So this is a scenario where you are deleting an element in the middle of the list, right? So again, let us consider the three different scenarios. First scenario is delete a node in the middle. This already I have explained in the previous slide. Let's say the node B. So then we have to modify one pointer A. Second scenario is delete a node in the beginning. So in this case, the beginning node is A. You see, if we want to delete A, then you do not have to change any next pointers. Rather, you only have to modify the head pointer. Head was pointing to A, now head will be pointing to B directly. So starting from head, B will become the first element and C will become the second element. Right? And the third scenario is delete a node at the end. So in this example, the end node is C. So if you want to delete this node C, you see C was pointing to null, right? Now you'll have to change this one next pointer, B. B will be pointing to null. So straight away, if you follow the pointers now, A will be the first node, B will be the second node, and after B, you will get null, so there is no further node. So is the process clear? That what is the logical process of deleting a node in the middle, in the beginning, and at the end?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us look into the C code, how to write functions for this. Okay. Step by step, let us go into it. The example that we are taking, we are considering that same example of a student. So let's assume that we have declared a structure like this. The name of the structure is stud. Stud. Stud is the name of the structure, and there are 3 data elements containing roll number, which is an integer, name, which is a character string, and age, which is also an integer. And of course, there will be a pointer to the next. So there will be one note for student 1, another note for student 2, and so on. So the next pointer will be pointing to the next one. So here, this next will be the next pointer. Now, as I said, in the previous example that we had taken, we had considered a very simple example of with 3 nodes. But now we are trying to make our program general. There can be 10 nodes, 100 nodes, 1000 nodes, any number. Okay. So what you are doing, first thing is that we had already declared a structure of type stud. See, you have studied type definition in your C class. If you do not remember, just recall, if you write this keyword type def followed by the type of the structure, the struct stud, and this is the, at the end, this is a user defined data type. So instead of writing struct stud every time, you are saying that instead of struct stud, I shall simply be calling it as node. Node is like a new user defined data type. So this is an element of type node, this is an element of type node, and so on. So if you do a type def, your program will become a little simpler, easier to write. So you can directly define the head pointer. So what is head, you recall? Head was a variable which was pointing to the first element, right? So head is a pointer which is pointing to a node of type NODE node. So you declare it as follows: node star head. So here you are declaring the head pointer. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
This is how we are declaring the student structure using type def. We are defining a user defined data type for students. We are calling it as node, and we are defining a variable head which is a pointer to node. Okay. Now let us look into the functions one by one. Let us see how do we create a list. So initially the linked list is not there. Suppose in your class there are 50 students. We have to create a list containing 50 students. Let us see. So we have to create the nodes one by one. So in the beginning, to start with, there is nothing. We have to create the first node. How do you create the first node? You can use malloc. So means you recall malloc, we discussed about malloc in the last class. Malloc dynamically allocates space in memory. And how many bytes? You specify it here. Number of bytes. So if you say size of node, it means how many bytes is required for this node. See, this whole thing is node. Node is a structure containing role, name, age, and a next pointer. So the whole thing, how many bytes it contains, that let's say it contains 40 bytes. Let's say it contains 40 bytes. So this malloc will be allocating 40 bytes. And I said malloc by default returns a null pointer. So you will have to do a typecasting because you will be pointing head to a structure type node. So it will be node star. And this pointer you are assigning to the variable head. So you recall you had already declared head like this, node star head. So if you do head equal to this, so now this head variable will be storing the address of this first node. Let's say the address is 500. Then in this variable, 500 will be stored. So starting from head, I can directly go to the first node. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now starting from the first node, similarly, we can create n number of nodes one by one. So I am not showing the code segment here. We shall directly see it in the C function. So we will be creating n number of such nodes one by one, and head is already pointing to the first node. First node will be pointing to the second node. Second node will be pointing to the third node. Like this, you will have to insert the nodes one by one. Now this we shall see in the function in the next slide, how to do it. Okay, let us see. This function you see on this slide, create list. This is the name of the function. This function creates a linked list containing n elements. But before I explain this function, let us see from the main function, how do we call this? Let us move to the next slide. See, from the main function, we would be declaring this head pointer like this. We already said it is node star head. And then we can directly call this function create list. What this create list will do, create list will automatically create a linked list of n elements. That way, it will ask the user to enter the value of the student records one by one, create the linked list, and it will return the starting address, whatever. Let's say if it is XYZ, starting address of the first element. So this will be returning XYZ, which will be assigned to head. So now head will be pointing to the first element of the linked list. This is how we are supposed to call this function. Okay. So one thing you remember here, if you look at this function create list, there is no parameter. It does not take any parameter, right? But it returns a value. The function has a return value. So can anyone tell me what will be the return value type? So what type of data the function will return?
Sir, node.
It will return a pointer, right?
Yes, sir, node star.
It will return a pointer to a node. So it will be node star. All right. The return value will be node star. So it will be returning a pointer to a structure of type node. Okay. With this, now if you go back, it will be easier to understand. You see, in the function create list, there are no parameters, but the return value is node star. So it returns a pointer to a structure of type node. Now there are some variables we are declaring. Now n is number of nodes, let us say. How many nodes we want to enter? So we are asking the user to enter n. Printf, how many elements to enter? Scanf, ampersand n. So the user will first enter how many students are there. Let's say 50. So user will enter 50. And you see, we have declared two pointers. One is of course of type head and another is of type P. The two variables P and head, they are both of type note star. They are pointing to note. Now, after we have read the value of n, so here n equal to 50, this is n equal to 50. Now, in this loop, k equal to 0 up to n minus 1, we will be reading the student data for these 50 students one by one, and we shall be creating the linked list. Let us try to understand. First, we are checking if k is 0. What does k is 0 means? It means that we are reading the first student data, right? K is 0 means the first student data. The first time the loop. So what we are doing? We are allocating space for a node. Let us say we are allocating space for a node. And we are assigning it to head. So the variable pointer head will be pointing to this. This is what this line is doing. Right? And we are doing another thing. The other pointer variable P we are declaring, we are writing P equal to head. So this P is also pointing to the same place. P and head will contain the same value. So is this part clear?
Yes.
For the first element, when k equal to 0, you are doing this. You are creating space for one element. You are just assigning the return value to head so that head points here. And you see, then we are reading the values of role, name, and age so that these values get filled up. The value for the first student. Because now P points to this. So you see, I have given P arrow role, P arrow name, and P arrow age. We are reading the role, name, and age here. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now suppose this is not the first element. The first element has already been inserted. Let us say k equal to 1. This is the second element. So this after scanf, again you go back to the loop. Again you start from here. You check now k will be equal to 1, right? In this for loop. If k equal to 0, no, k is not equal to 0. So now you come to the else part. So for else part, what you do, you again allocate space for a node. So you allocate space for the second student, second node. And this student, the return value where you are storing it in P next. What is P next? P was already pointing to the first element, right? And P next was this. So you are storing the address, yes. That means you are creating this pointer. The address of the second node you are storing here. So this link is getting created. And you are writing P equal to P next. So now P was initially pointing to the first element and P next is the second element, right? So now P will be pointing to the second element. Then you go to the scanf and read the data for the second student. Go back again. Now k will be equal to 2. So again check k equal to 0. No. It will again come to the else part. Again malloc. Again a node will be created. Return value will be P next. Now P is pointing to the second node. P next will be this. So this pointer is getting connected. and P equal to P next. So now P will be pointing to here. You read scanf like this. Like this you continue for all 50 students. Okay? And once you are finished, you will come out of the for loop. So for the last P next, you store null. So for the last P next, you store null. And you return the pointer. See, head still points to the first element because we have not modified head. Only for k equal to 0, we have assigned a value to head. After that, we have not modified. And we are returning the value of head. Tell me, is this function clear? Just if you think it logically, step by step, it will not be difficult at all. It will be very easy. Just to try to understand pictorially what you are trying to do. So are there any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. So this is the function for creating a list. So I also told about the main function. You can directly call this create list. So the list will be created. The address of the first element will be returned that you are assigning to this variable head. So now your linked list is ready. Now once the linked list is ready, the first thing you may want to do is, starting from the beginning, traverse the list. That means you go to the elements one by one and print the values. Print the value of the first student, second student, third student, and so on. That is called traversal. This is a relatively easy function, which actually we have already seen in the last class. Same function will do. So what we're saying is that once the linked list has been constructed, and we're assuming that the variable head points to the first node, we shall be following the pointers one by one and display or print the contents of the nodes one by one. And the process will stop when you find that the next pointer becomes null, which means we have reached the end of the list, right? Let us straight away go to the function because this is a relatively easier function. And in fact, this is the same function as what we saw last day. Almost the same function. Let's take an example that there are 3 elements in the linked list which we have already created. This is null and head is pointing here. So you see, before explaining this again, let us look at the main function. Main function, we have declared the variable called head, and when we are calling the create list, we already did something like this, right? We did something like this. Now when we are calling this function display, we are passing as parameter the pointer head. Now tell me, what is the data type of this parameter? Data type of this parameter is node star. This is a point because head, you see, the way you have declared, it is of type node star, right? Just remember this. So now going back to this function, you see the parameter is node star and we are giving the same name. You could have given some other name also, no problem. We are giving the same name as head, and display does not return anything. That's why it is void. And here in the function, we are declaring a variable count which maintains the sequence of the student. That means student number 1, 2, 3, 4, just that sequence number. So we start with count equal to 1. And let's declare a temporary pointer variable P. That is also node star. So we are assigning head to P. So P points to the first element, right? Now we are repeating this while loop while P is not equal to null. P will be null only for the last one, right? For the first one, it is a valid address, so it is not null. So we are printing the values of first the sequence number, count is 1, and then P arrow role, P arrow name, P arrow age. P is a pointer to the node. We are printing the values of role, name, and age. It is of type integer, string, integer. Then we are increasing the value of count by 1 so that next time the value 2 will be printed. And we are moving the pointer P equal to P next. So this we discussed in the previous class also. P equal to P next means P was pointing here. Now P will be pointing to the next element. So when you go back, this printf will be printing the second element. Again, count will become 3. Again, P equal to P next. Now P will be pointing to the third element. So again, it will be printed. Count will be 4. Again, P next. So now P will be pointing here. Now this value is null, right? So next time when you go back, this P not equal to null will become false. So you come out, just print a new line and return. So this is a fairly straightforward function. So is this clear? So any doubt in this function?
Sir, in this function, if we use in the argument list, if we use node double star head, and if we increment that head instead of taking a extra variable p, if we so what happens if we take double star f?
Okay, just wait a little bit for your answer. I have your answer just in next few slides.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So what will happen, or when do we need to use double star?
Okay.
First thing you need to understand is that when we use single star, when we use double star.
Yes.
Why? Okay, let us come to that. Yes. Actually, you asked a very important question, relevant question. Let's try to answer that. Okay. So let us move on to the more complex parts, more complex functions. Let's start with inserting a node in the list. So you recall, we have already discussed the 3 possible scenarios: inserting in the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. Let us generally look at it. So when I say inserting, so I am saying that I specify some node and I have to insert a new node before that particular node. For example, I have 3 students already entered. Let's say first student is Amit, second student is Bimal, third student is Rohit. And I tell insert, let's say Arnav, a new student, before Bimal. So I say like this. So my specified node is Bimal. Before Bimal, I want to insert. So Arnav will get inserted in between here, right? And for every node, you see there are 3 fields I talked about. I said roll number, name, there is an age. So it is like a structure, right? Now in this structure, typically one of the fields we refer to as the key. And key is often something which is unique. For students, obviously roll number will be the unique, because 2 students can already be there with the same role, same name. Okay. So there are already 2 students in the class with my name. So you know that there can be duplicate in the name. So, but if you tell roll number will be unique, right? So when you say before a specified node, you can specify the node by roll number, so there will be no confusion. So insert a node before roll number so and so. Okay. And the convention that we shall be following is that if the roll number is entered as a negative value, which is of course not valid, this will mean that you want the new node to be inserted at the end of the list. Otherwise, you specify the roll number before which it will be inserted. Okay? Now the three different scenarios I talked about, so these are summarized here. So when a node is added at the beginning, just to recall, let's again consider three nodes with head pointing to the first. So when you want to add a node in the beginning, here, you need to adjust only one next pointer. This next pointer will be adjusted to point here. And this variable head will be pointing to this new node. So head is made to point to the new node, and the new node will point to the previously first element. This is what I showed. Similarly, when you add a node at the end, so what do you have to do? If you add a node at the end, so the new node will point to null. The new node here, this will point to null. And the last node here, which was pointing to null, this will now point to the new node. This will point to the new node. Right? These are the things you need to remember. So that means understanding the function will be easier. And when you want to add a node in the middle, suppose you want to add a node here between the first and second. Here you need to adjust two next pointers. The next pointer of this new node, this will be pointing here, and this next pointer will be pointing here. So previous node will be pointing to the new node, and new node will be pointing to the next node. Clear? This already I explained earlier with the help of the diagram. Same thing I will do. Okay, now let me try to come to that question you asked. Sometimes we use star head, sometimes we use double star head. Why? But before that, let me come to a very simple function which you must have studied in your class. I'm not sure. So is this a familiar function?
Yes.
This is a function using which you swap two integer values. Before we explain this, let us say we do not use the stars. Just forget this. Delete the stars for the time being. Delete this ampersand for the time being. Suppose I wrote a program like this. So will this work? You see what we are doing. In the main function, I am defining two variables n1, n2, n1 equal to 5, n2 equal to 10. There I'm calling this function swap with the values n1, n2, 5 and 10. So 5 will come here, 10 will come here. And inside the function, I am doing temp equal to a, which means temp will become 5, a equal to b, so a will become 10, b will become b equal to temp, b will become 5. So as if we are exchanging the values of a and b. But tell me one thing, if I print n1 and n2 in the main function, what will get printed? 510 or 105?
510, sir.
Why?
Because since we are not doing it by reference, it is by value, so it won't be changed in the main function, in the calling function.
The question is, the problem is, you see, this is something which I shall be discussing in my next special lecture. How memory space is allocated, particularly I shall talk about recursion and function calls. You see, let me tell you one thing. Suppose this is my memory. in the main function, when I declare these variables n1 and n2, this n1 and n2 will be declared somewhere in memory. They will be allocated space. Right? Similarly, in the function, when I use a, b as parameters and also temp, this a, b and temp, a, b and temp, they will also be allocated memory space, but somewhere else, not in the same memory space. They will be allocated different memory address. So when you make a call swap n1, n2, this is call by value. The values of n1, n2, just 5 and 10, will get copied to a and b. Now a will become 5, b will become 10. But you see, these changes will happen in this part of memory because a and b are here. And inside the function, you are changing the values of temp, a and b. So everything is getting changed here. But n1 and n2, you are not changing at all. Okay. So when you go back to your main program and print n1, n2, same 5 and 10 will get printed because you are not modified n1, n2. They are still 5 and 10. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Now let us see what we are doing in the correct version of it. Let me erase this one. This was my original program. So this is the correct version. You see, again, I am talking about the memory. So somewhere in memory, I have allocated space for n1. I have allocated space for n2. Let's suppose the address of n1 is 1000. The address of n2 is 1004. N2 is 1004. Let's take an example. These are the addresses. Address in the memory location. So the main program you see, after this initializing n1, n2 to 5 and 10, we are calling swap. The parameters are ampersand n1 and ampersand n2. What does this ampersand mean? So what is ampersand n1? Ampersand n1 means address of n1. Address of n1, and this means address of n2. Right? So whatever values get copied in the parameter will not be 5 and 10, but the address of n1 and address of n2, which is 1000 and 1004. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Now this 1000 and 1004, these are not integer values. These are pointers, right? These are addresses in memory. That's why the parameters I'm writing as star A and star B. Star A indicates it's a pointer type variable. Now this temp is a variable I'm declaring. So temp can be somewhere in memory. Let's say here I have temp. Temp is allocated space somewhere. Now you see, when I write temp equal to ampersand A, what will happen? Temp equal to star A. See, when I have a pointer type variable, let's say I have declared a variable, let's say int A and star P. And I write A equal to 5. And let's say P contains the address of A. Then if I write star P, what will it indicate? Star P is the same as A. Star P will indicate the value 5, right?
Yes, sir.
If P is a pointer type variable, star P will mean the value of the memory location pointed to by that pointer variable. So P is pointing to address of A here. Okay. So whatever is the value of A, 5 here, so that 5 star P will indicate 5. So in same way, when I write temp equal to star A contains 1000. Star A will be the contents of N1. So temp will contain the value 5. Is it clear? Because in N1, the value 5 is stored, and in N2, the value 10 is stored. In the next statement, I write star A equal to star B. What does this mean? Star B means B is 1004, right? So the contents of 1004, that is 10. Star B indicates 10. I am assigning it to star A. A is a pointer type variable. Means this 10 will get stored here in memory location 1000 because A is a pointer containing 1000. And lastly, if I write star B equal to temp, temp is already 5, and star B, this 10 will become 5. So you see, now if you print N1 and N2 in the main function, actually 10 and 5 will get printed. The value will get interchanged. So is this function clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, the important thing is that when inside a function, I want to change the value of some variable which is declared in my main. Like, let me again come to this. So what we are saying is that in the main function, we have declared two variables N1 and N2. And we have written a function, we are calling it. And in the function, we are supposed to modify the values of N1 and N2. So whenever you have a requirement like this, then you pass pointers. Do not pass values. You use ampersand. And in the parameter, you write star. Got it? So whenever you have declared some variable in the main function, that will get modified in a function. So you need to pass addresses, and in the function, you need to use pointers as parameters. Otherwise, the original values will not get modified. This is what I explained just now. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So if you are writing a function just to print the larger of two numbers, then you do not need to pass pointers because you are not returning any value, not changing anything. Just you are comparing A and B. If A greater than B, print A, else print B, something like that.
So then also if we do this and then if we just return value and we do not take it by like reference, that is also equivalent to this code only.
Return value you can always do, but the problem with return value is that you can return only a single value.
Yes, sir. I am just asking an equivalence, like what is equal, like passing by reference, passing by returning something, and passing like I asked in the first.
See here the two variables you are trying to modify, right? N1 and N2.
Yes.
So if you can declare a structure containing two elements, N1 and N2, and if you pass the entire structure to the function, and if you return a variable of type structure, that way you can do.
Sir, what happens if these N1 and N2 are global variables?
Just wait for the next lecture.
Okay, sir.
Because the next lecture, exactly what I shall be telling. See, here in the last exam, worked out to whatever I was working out, I just said that N1, N2 is allocated somewhere in memory, A, B, temp are allocated somewhere else in memory.
Yes, sir, exactly.
But I did not tell where. Similarly, you asked another question. If it's a global variable, where in memory it is allocated?
Yes,
If
sir.
it is a static variable, where in memory it is allocated?
Yes, sir.
We need to understand that. And that I shall be discussing in next class when you talk about function call, recursion, and all these things. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Those part will get clear. Now let us come to the insert function. Now, as you can see in the insert function, very nicely this parameter has a double star as a parameter, double star head. First, let us try to understand why we need double star here. Okay, this insert is naturally a slight longer function. There are 2 pages. But let us look at the main first. This is important. You see, I am inserting a node, right? Let's say there are 2 elements in the linked list, and head is pointing to my first element. So what I say is that I have already done something like this. Head equal to create list. Then we are calling insert. Now, inside the insert function, I will ask the user to enter a roll number. Before that roll number, we'll be inserting the new node. Suppose you are inserting the node in the middle or at the end, right? If you insert in the middle or at the end, you just see the value of the head will not change. So whatever it was, it will remain the same. It will still be pointing to the first element, right? Is it clear? If the element is inserted either in the middle or at the end, then the variable head will not change.
Yes, sir.
But if I insert an element in the beginning, then head has to be modified. So the value of head has to be modified. So whenever you are calling insert, you must pass the starting pointer to the linked list head. But because head also has a chance of getting modified, you have to pass the address of head. And head is already of type node star. You see head, the data type is already of type node star. So when you say address of head, it becomes node double star. That is the main thing. Here, the variable head you are talking about, this itself is a pointer. And inside the function, that pointer might get modified. That's why you are passing a double star. Because one extra star, you are passing this ampersand head. That means address of head. And head itself is a pointer. Head contains address of some other variable, the first element. Right? So once you do this, then this insert, the parameter will be double star head, and inside wherever you are using head, you use a star head like this. Just like swap function, whenever you pass those parameters, so you had used everywhere star A, star B like
Hello,
that.
sir.
Here also you're using star head.
I have not understood the double star function.
Yes.
Please repeat one.
Double star means address of. See, in this example, swap, so whenever you write int star A, this means whenever you write int star A, what is the meaning? The meaning is A is a pointer. Star A is a value. A is a pointer. A is pointing to some memory location, and whatever the value is there in that memory location, that is star A. So inside the function, wherever using star A and star B, that same thing is happening. Right? Now in the example that I'm citing, here the head itself is a pointer. See here A was a variable, star A is a, now this head is a pointer. You are passing star head, because from the main function you are calling with ampersand head, and head is a pointer type variable. Pointer type variable means one star will come automatically for that pointer variable, and because you are modifying it inside, there will be another star inserted. And here there is a one small mistake, please correct it. There will be another star here. So whenever you are modifying the value, there will be two stars. Here also, there will be double star, not single star, double star. Just like in the previous case, you are using star A, star B. So here you are using double star head, double star head. And this is the function for insertion. So I am not going into detail. I already explained it pictorially. I am just explaining. See, you want to insert a new element, right? First, you create a space for the new element. Call it new. You have declared a note star. This is new. And you ask the user to enter the data in scanf. You are reading the roll number, name, and age of the new student who we want to insert. Then you ask the user, you insert before roll number. Ask the user to enter the roll number before which you have to enter. And if you want to enter at the end, you can enter some negative roll number. Right? Fine. Now the program is very simple. You see, this P is a pointer. So P, you start by initializing it to this head, the starting of the, and you check whether the roll number which the user has entered, this is equal to the, this is contained in the first node itself. If it contains in the first node, means you're inserting at the beginning. Then the next node you are linked. See, if you want to insert in the first node, what you do? Head was pointing here. So this is your new node. This is new. And this P is pointing to the first node. So P will be pointing here, and the next of new will be pointing here. You see, next of new, you are storing as P because P was pointing here. And head, the new value of head will be new. Done. Nothing else to be done. And if you want to insert at the end, you go on traversing. Because it's a negative roll number, it will never match. In this while loop, as long as P is not equal to null, not equal to roll number, you go on in the while loop. And once you come out here, there is no match. You check if P is null, then at the end, the next, see, this P and Q are two pointers. P and Q, they follow each other. Q is pointing to one node, P will be falling to the next node. If you check, I leave it an exercise for you, you check that. And the next one I put as null. And otherwise means you have already found out P is not null. Before that, it's in the middle. You similarly insert this. You see, this code is fairly simple. You just look at the pictorial depictions I talked about earlier, and then you correlate with this. It will be very simple in that case. Try to understand from that perspective, right? Okay, let us move on. So I leave it as an exercise for you to understand this. The last is deleting a node from a list. So when you delete a node, so again, you specify a node. Let's say I give the roll number. So deletion can happen in the first node, last node, or a node in the middle. Now, if it is a deletion in the first node, you see, then head pointer gets modified. Because head was pointing to the first element, and if you are deleting the first node, the head will be modified. Now head will be pointing to here. So because of this, for the delete function also, we need to use double star head here. So you use again double star here. So again, the program is very simple. I'm not going into the detail. So you ask the user to enter the roll number to delete. Then this pointer P is head. You see whether it is the first element. P roll is roll number or not. If it is so, then modify the head pointer to P next. And the first node is deleted. So you free it. So you are immediately releasing the memory space. Just note this. Similarly, for the other elements, you check this condition not equal to null and not equal to roll number. As long as it's true, you move on to the next same way. Q points to one node, P points to the next node. That way the pointers keep on moving. And finally, if P is null, you print that there's no match, deletion failed. But otherwise, if it is a match, it is somewhere in the middle. So this Q next, this P next, say there was one element here, one element here. This was Q, this was P. So Q next will be P. P next was, let's say, somewhere else. So this will be pointing here. And P will be freed. Okay. This is what this insertion and deletion function looks like. You see, means I am not going into the code and trying to explain it to you line by line. I have already explained the functional property with the help of the diagram. I have also explained to you the pointers. What does this mean? Try to understand it yourself now. Draw diagrams and you try to correlate that whether they are same. And a sample main function will look like this. So you can declare a node pointer. Of course, declaration of node I have not shown. That will be there in the beginning before we implement. You create the list. Let's say I'm displaying the contents. Insert something, display, delete something, display, and so on. Just recall that for insertion and deletion, you are passing the address of head, ampersand head. Because inside these two functions, the value of head might get modified. Right? So just one question, actually today, how much more time do I have? Or means you have some other class after this?
No, sir, this is a free slot, so you can continue
Okay.
for another.
So what I'll do, I shall give you a very brief introduction about abstract data types with some examples. Because this is an important concept when you later on go into learning about stacks and queues and other things. Those are examples of abstract data types. Let's see. See, abstract data type. Let us take an example. You have studied stack in your class, right? So maybe it means all of you have not understood it equally well, but stack was covered in the class, I believe. Some of the operations on stack you have also studied must be pushing an element in the stack, copying an element from the stack, like that. So what I mean is that, so when you are asked to implement a stack, this stack you can implement using an array, you can implement using a let's say linked list, or in any other way. So there are multiple ways of implementing a stack. But from the user's point of view, when you are just using these functions push and pop, you may not be interested to know how this stack was actually implemented. So this is what we mean by abstract data type, which means the details of implementation are hidden from the user. So only the specification and the set of operations that are permitted, that are provided to the user. Okay, and these specifications are independent of actual implementation. Like as I said, the implementation can be using an array, can be using a linked list. Well, I am giving a few examples. Let's see. Think about complex numbers. I do not know whether this kind of programs you did in your lab earlier. Well, a complex number, a plus j into b, it has a real part and an imaginary part. So when you want to represent a complex number in C, well, you can declare a structure with a real part and imaginary part. Say, let's call it the variable names RE and IM. Let's say of type float. And I am defining a user-defined data type of type complex. Then I can write some functions for complex number addition, subtraction, multiplication, division by using this data type complex I have already wrote. Complex A, complex B are the two parameters. It returns a pointer to a complex structure. Similarly, I can read a complex number. I can print a complex number. So only the function prototypes are given to you. See, once the function prototypes are given to you, you can directly, let's say, declare, let's say, complex, let's say x, y, z. You can declare three variables x, y, z of type complex. You can do, let's say, x equal to read, y equal to read. Then let's say add, not add, z equal to add xy. Then let's say print z. So writing a program like this will be very much easier for you if these function prototypes are given to you. So you need not have to understand how these functions add, subtract, multiply, divide are written, how they're implemented. So if you treat the representation and the function implementation of complex number as an abstract data type, pictorially you can view it like this. As if complex number is an abstract data type on which these operations are available to you. And the function prototypes are also given so that you can use them in a program. Okay. Let's take some more examples. Set manipulation. Suppose I have a set of elements. Let's say I am implementing them as a linked list. Let's say as a linked list. So the structure definition I am showing like a linked list, an element and a pointer to the next. So I am declaring a user-defined data type as set. So here again, you see some function prototypes are available, like union of two sets, intersection of two sets, set difference, inserting an element in a set, deleting one element from a set, size of a set. So the functions can be available to you. So here, this also is an example of an abstract data type where the set implementation you need not know about in detail, but these functions you can use. Similarly, stack, which is more relevant for this data structure course. So you know stack is a data structure conceptually shown like this, where one end is closed, where you can push elements one by one and you can pop elements from the same side. Because you are pushing and popping at the same end, the order will be last in, first out. The last element you have pushed will be the first element you are popping out. Okay. Now, in terms of the function prototype, well, you can declare a data type of type stack. I'm not showing that here for simplicity. So there can be one function to create a stack. So if you call this a stack with the name S will get created. Then there will be a function for push. So there is a stack S, you are pushing an element in the stack. There is a function pop where an element is popped and the value is returned. You can check whether the stack is empty or not. If it is empty, it will return 1. If it is not empty, it will return, let's say 0, something like that. Similarly, you check whether the stack is full or not. If the stack is full, you cannot push any more elements, then it will return 1, otherwise it will return 0. So again, as an abstract data type, a stack can be viewed like this. Later on, when you get time, we talk about the implementation of stack. We'll see again, a stack we can implement using array. You can use linked list. So the implementation will differ, but the way you call the functions, they will not change much. So the visualization of the stack remains the same, right? Similarly, when you talk about a queue is some kind of a data structure where you insert element at one end and remove element from the other end. The operations are called enqueue and equeue. So here again, you can have one function for creating a queue, to enter an element into a queue, to remove an element from a queue, to check whether a queue is empty, also to check the size. So this is also an abstract data type. Right? So this is what I said, visualization. If you put the elements in the order A, B, and C, the first element that comes out is A, then B, then C. So this is first in, first out. So there are many applications where you need this first in, first out, and there are many applications where you need last in, first out. So here in this class, I did not go into the detail how to implement stack, queue, this kind of things. But what I very briefly said is the basic concept of an abstract data type. So what an abstract data type is, and using the concept of abstract data type, how we can hide the implementation details of a stack and a queue, for example, from the user. So when we look into the implementation of stack later, you will see that for alternate implementation, the user interface does not change. Okay. Now so we stop here for today. Now the next class, what I would like to say is something very important. Like you see, what I mentioned today, that stack is a data structure where the access is last in, first out. Queue is a data structure where access is first in, first out. But if I ask you a question today, can you name a few applications of stack? So can anyone tell? Some applications of stack?
So function calls.
Function calls. Yes. Anything else?
Recursion.
Recursion. There are many other applications.
So infix,
Expression handling.
postfix and postfix prefix.
Backtracking.
Yes. Postfix prefix. So when you do expression evaluation, so having a stack makes it very much simple. Right. Now, specifically in the next class, I shall be talking about function calls. See, generally I am referring to it as function calls, but under it we shall be learning a few things, not only just function calls. Like one thing we'd be learning about is memory allocation. So I am saying that you are defining some local variables inside a function. You can define a global variable. You can define a static variable. So many kinds of variables. And means also malloc. You're doing malloc. Some variables are getting allocated in memory. So the question is, where in memory are these variables getting allocated? Some of them are permanently allocated. Some of them are temporary. You need to understand this, not only with respect to function calls, but later on for courses like compilers and other things, this concept becomes absolutely important. So without that basic idea, you will never be able to understand how compiler generates code. And the second thing is that, of course, recursion. See, recursion looks more like a magic that I call a function is calling itself and the value is automatically getting computed. So we need to understand the mechanism. So there also we shall see how the concept of stack can help in implementing recursive programs, in helping the programs run, right? So all these things we shall cover under a single umbrella, and that discussion we shall start in the next class. So thank you very much. If you have any other questions, we can discuss, but otherwise I am done. So Dr. Datta, you can stop the recording.
Sir, shall I end the class?